All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast with, let me zoom in here. Is that a Caleb Saenz of a website that no longer exists of the ESPN True Hoop Network, 48 Minutes of Hell himself? Caleb Saenz, How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. The city is still buzzing. It's a new era.
Something happened in San Antonio last week?
Yeah, something that I would say only comes along once in a lifetime, but it's happened 3 times. Yeah, and to this franchise. So, yeah.
Well, we'll get into that.
I'm sure.
But I wanted to start here. Our last pod. We've never done a video pod, obviously, because when we were doing this, we were actually doing dial-up internet. I think was when we first got started here with podcasts, essentially. But you were in a closet, and
that is exactly right.
You had elderly churchgoers popping in said closet. I don't think that's going to happen here, but when I say I wish we were doing video pods at that time of you having to say, wait a second, hold on, and then this nice elderly woman popping in the screen and then just like looking in like, what is this? What are we doing? Would have been great.
And be in the dark.
Yeah.
Be in the dark.
Because you were in like a janitor's closet, right?
Yeah, it was definitely for storage. I think they converted it to an office now.
Okay.
In a very weird twist of fate. So that was, 7 years ago? 7-ish? Yeah. So I was working at that church at the time. I moved on about 5 years ago. We're in the process of planting a church in the same area. And that church opened up that building for us to use kind of in this interim year. So I've been back in that building mere feet from that closet.
How is it? Is it the same?
Last few months. It's still, I miss it. We should, there's just that space. Maybe I should have gone back there just to record this, spark some of that old magic. Yeah.
I mean, a lot's changed over here. You're planting churches. You're doing the ministry full time. You're singing. You have 2 kids. You got attacked by a scorpion in the bathroom, I feel like a year ago.
I did, yeah.
That story, I remember I showed my wife that where I'm like, this is why we can't live in Texas because Caleb from the pod is over here getting scorpions in his bathroom and just like you can't even, you always have to be on your toes when you're living in San Antonio, Texas.
And bugs just like me. We actually just got back from our staff retreat a couple days ago, and I was on a kayak on the Llano River in Hill Country, Texas. Beautiful, fantastic weather. I'm in front of everybody and trying to avoid overhanging branches, and I went through these 2 branches and covered my face, and I looked down, and I've never seen more spiders in my life. Covering my legs and the entire kayak, and at that point I realized, they're probably in my hair and all over my body. So I jumped off the kayak after screaming, and I got bites on my legs. So
are you serious? So they got you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I promise. I like there were, it was probably less than what it felt like in my mind, but I want to say there was, dozens and dozens of little spiders. Just, I must have hit a nest or something. So
kayaking's out.
Using the bathroom, apparently. Yeah. Scorpions also out. So not a lot of options left other than sleeping. Yeah.
How has fatherhood changed your Spurs fandom?
See, Abby, first kid, knocked out of the park. My first Father's Day was the day they won the title in 2014. So there's not really that sets an impossible bar. Leland was born 5 years later, 2019, very different team, post Kawhi. So it's just a different era. We haven't gone to any games as a family yet, obviously. That will probably change this year or the next. Okay. I think I've been to 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 in the last few years.
Are you still watching every game?
I'd love to tell you yes. I am still reading recaps of every game.
Okay, how many are we doing here right now?
How many am I reading?
No, how many games are you watching? Leave Matthew Tynan out
games.
Of this. Yeah.
Full games a year, I'm probably watching maybe 10. which
Oh,
isn't
wow.
terrible. Yeah, it's way down, way
That's
down.
way down of what I would have guessed. I mean, they've been rough the last couple of years, but I still
I,
would not have pegged that.
well, I think this year probably cut it in half. So
Yeah.
it might have been 20 the year before, because you knew like trade
Mm.
preseason trade middle of the year. You just kind of knew like what they were going for.
You weren't like, Jennifer,
And
Jennifer, hold on. Y'all can put a post up. Come in here.
oh, wait, check this out. They just signed a guy. I thought the name was fake, genuinely, like at the end of the season. I can't even repeat his name. That's how much they really
Have you learned how
went
to
for it.
pronounce Devin Vassell yet?
I have not. I don't know how to spell it, but I
Yeah.
know. I always lose track if it's one or two L's.
I don't know if it's
Um,
Vassell either. Like I've said that, but I'm like, I think it's Vassell or Vassell. I've seen it. I can spell it, but I'm also going to point out I haven't watched enough full Spurs games to hear it enough to be like, that's probably what it is. Like
that's one of the things I'm excited about. Is there were flashes.
mm-hmm.
Vassell had a great season. Sohan, another guy whose
Yeah.
pronunciation of his name has almost no relation to the spelling. He classic Spur.
Yeah.
He had a really good season, especially doing the one-handed free throws, and but all those guys I think needed somebody else to make the interconnection make sense. So
Mm.
I'm actually really I'd imagine if I only watched 10 games last season, it'll probably be way higher this season.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Victor Wembanyama, so that's a couple of reasons I want to have you on. Is you're one of my favorite people from the blogosphere, and just having an opportunity for us to talk and check in is obviously great. And number two, though, things are really good. Like this is exciting for you. Like you have Victor Wembanyama coming into the fold, and I just imagine, like I remember Caleb, and this is probably why it still stings. Like I know exactly where I was when the Hawks drafted Luka Doncic. Like I can tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing, what I did, what I yelled at a certain bar in Atlanta. I could tell you the whole night. Like I can tell you the 5 minutes after when it became clear that he was going to get traded. The whole night, it's just etched in my mind. Like I could tell you all about it. I have like PTSD from the Luka trade, and I just can only imagine what it was like for Victor Wembanyama, because I was all in on Luka. I was so excited. He was taken from me, and I'll never recover. However,
Yeah.
I don't think you're in that spot here. I don't think they're going to trade back for Scoot Henderson. It doesn't strike me as that being the case.
No.
So walk me through draft lottery night for you, Caleb. Like, what were you doing? Were you pacing? How did you approach draft night, and how did you approach just as the picks are coming out? Walk me through the whole situation in the Saenz household.
I'll never forget it. I didn't watch it at home. Actually, we went to there's a great brewery in town called Freetail. Went with my friend Austin, and I think people were excited, but people were really not wanting to get their hopes up. And you like anytime you talk about it the week or two before, people are like, I don't know. And you had my friend Trevor, 48 Minutes of Hell crew. He would run the draft lottery simulations tankathon every day, and like I think he might have out of 100 times seen the Spurs get the number one pick a handful of times. So it's just everybody's expectations were really tempered, and yet at Freetail you could tell there's like people showing up, they're all in their jerseys, but everybody's quiet, which was also odd. So everybody's there just kind of drinking, and I went with my friend Austin. The fact that there was only two of us at our table also kind of tells you, like, I think our friend group was like, yeah, we'll see. I don't want to go get my hopes up. And, we get the, Detroit thing happens to us or whatever that might be. So we're sitting down and, it starts, and every envelope, you can hear it in the room. Like, okay, all right, 12, not us. All right, 11, 10, and everybody's getting excited, And I would say right around when it got to 7 and it wasn't us, people started to like stand up and around this bar, and you watch it. And when it got to that 5th one and Detroit flipped, everybody went nuts. We had a top 4 pick. Like for some reason that was like the cutoff. Like we have a top 4 pick, and then they go to commercial, And at that point, everybody's pacing, and I'm like, what little hair I have left is in danger. I'm just, I can't help it, And I'd say, short of, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but short of that Charlotte moment, when we got back from commercial and that fourth envelope opened and it was Houston, that is almost as good a feeling as my dog barks. That is almost as good a feeling as getting number one, is Houston not getting a top.
They were more upset than I think Spurs fans were happy about winning the draft. Twitter was a nightmare for the Houston fans. They were apoplectic about that whole situation.
I can't tell you how many times I watched the clip of there's a group of like 3 bloggers. I wish I could remember the name of the Houston blog, Rockets blog, but I try to follow functioning teams, so I haven't read it much this year. But they're watching it live and they're like, please, not number 12, please. And then they get to 5 and they're like, come on, San Antonio. And the envelope opens, it's Detroit. And then when it opens, they're so mad, but then they keep going. They're like, okay, not San Antonio. Of course, you know the story. 3 opens. It's Portland. Honestly, I was pretty excited for Portland. I think it's awesome. A lot of questions in the offseason, but good for them. But when that second envelope opened, I mean, you could see it. Like Peter Holt Jr. was like, "Let's go, baby!" And they hadn't even barely announced. They didn't even get Charlotte Hornets out.
Yeah.
The bar I was at absolutely erupted. People were hugging. They were embracing strangers, like somebody had announced the end of World War II. I mean, we're jumping, we're screaming. This older lady at the bar, for some reason, made a beeline to hug me. Never, she turned around and left. I mean, it was just that moment.
Did you accept it?
It wasn't like I had a chance to. She was shorter too, so I just was like, turned around and was like, but that was happening all over the room. I mean, I couldn't. I yelled so much. I really had trouble talking the next day. Night, buddy. It's my son. Bye.
Is he really going to bed though? Or is he going to do the tunes for the next hour and a half?
He wants to come say hi. You want to come say hi?
This is the first for the podcast.
Special guest.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
That's Mr. Chase. He's saying hi. I got the earphones in.
Oh, yeah, you can't hear me.
Hi.
This is Leland.
Hey, Leland, how are you?
Say, go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go.
There we go. All right.
That is what we like.
Is Wemby going to be your favorite player? Number 1, Wemby? Yeah, you're going to be as tall as him? Oh, sure. We'll see.
Oh,
all right.
There you go.
Night, buddy. Night.
Incredible.
Bye.
The first father-son appearance on this program.
It's like LeBron and Bronny. That's great.
Yeah.
Because I'm almost the same age. So there you go. Night.
Isn't it weird to hear how people talk about these older players and you're like, I'm that age. Like, I can't even talk about, like, he's so old and so washed. And you're like, I'm 3 years older than this person. Like,
that's phase 2 of realizing you're old as an NBA fan. Phase 1 is when you're cheering for somebody. You're like, this guy's awesome. Man, I love this guy. And you look at his age and he's 22 and you're like, oh, I'm 12 years old. Like, or now I'm like, yes, Wembanyama, I could literally be his dad. That is a weird feeling.
Like Hal Korver Jr. when he enters the league, whenever that is, will just be oof.
That's very odd. I mean, it'll be really interesting. Not this summer, next summer when we draft Bronny and LeBron comes over. I mean, that's going to be quite a team. Anyway, so we're cheering. It's amazing. And even there, like at the bar, we're getting questions. Like people are just talking, like, "Oh, what should they do?" I mean, it starts right away, and you hear people saying, "Oh, they can go to the playoffs right away," and other people saying, like, "No, they should try and be bad again for a pick." And so I felt like everybody had these thoughts about what could be, but nobody was saying them out loud, almost like a superstition. And then it happened. And it's like, yes, we can finally talk about it. So it still feels so crazy. And then all the stories came out the next day about behind the scenes, and you feel bad for Detroit and you feel really bad for Washington, who apparently had an incredible opportunity. There was
you don't feel bad for Detroit. They had Cade Cunningham 2 years ago. They've been. I don't feel bad for the teams that have had it or been right there or have just been horrific for year over year. Like you don't get to keep doing this. Like you don't keep getting this good luck. I don't like it and doing nothing with it. Like, I think Victor's going to be awesome in San Antonio. Do I think he would have been awesome in Detroit? Have my doubts. In Houston? Have my doubts.
Oh, I think for all the people who don't love San Antonio, I think everybody agrees this is probably the best scenario for him as a player, maybe long term. I saw the other like undercurrent in San Antonio, of course, is like, okay, he's tall, he's lanky. What's the injury possibility like, right? Like, do we draft another Greg Oden? I heard a lot of people mention that. And we were trying to, yesterday, a friend of mine and I were talking about like what catastrophic thing would have to happen for us not to pick him at number one. And I don't even think at this point a major injury would prevent us from drafting him at number one. Like if he, God forbid, tore his Achilles in the off season, I still think they'd pick him at number one, but I get the hesitation. Like maybe, what's the statistic, like guys who are over 7 feet tall,
you just look at why Yao Ming retired and guys like that. I mean, Zydrunas Ilgauskas had 2 broken foots. Joel Embiid had 2 broken foots. It's common for guys like that.
Yeah.
Chet Holmgren obviously just broke his foot before this past year and missed all of this year. So it's a possibility, but you also look like you can get over it. Or it might happen once early, but then you move past it. They've just come such a long way that like I think what will always be common is guys don't last like 20 years at that size with the way the NBA is played now, because you're moving. There's so many more possessions. It's so much faster. Tempo's so much higher that like I don't think you're going to be able to do a Tim Duncan type 20-year run for Victor. But do I think he could be an elite all NBA MVP type for like 12 years? Yeah, I think that's possible.
Well, the stat I think is no player over 7'1" or over 7'2" has ever played more than 900 games in the NBA, which sounds kind of wild. I could be wrong. It's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But that's what, 11 seasons? Like,
yeah. Well, it depends on the playoff runs.
Yeah, that is true. Which obviously we're going to have a ton of those. So, yeah. But I do think.
But you also just go down that road. He's the best. He's the best. Like, just if it doesn't work out, no one's going to be like, man, what were you thinking taking the best prospect since LeBron? Like, that's not a thing. You just do it.
No, I do think that one other thing, just to rub it in Houston fans' faces one more time. The thing that I thought was so funny, one of the broadcasts had a camera on him as the envelopes are opening. And when they opened Houston at 4th, you can see him and camera looking at his buddy, and he's like, he was like so happy not to go to Houston. And
everybody knows, apparently. Everyone knows.
Nobody wants to play there.
Well, I mean, it's never good when it comes out like middle of the season that the coach like was brought to tears because of how unfun and unsuccessful it was and what it was like day in, day out. Like that takes a lot for that to get out. Like if that's like, man, that sounds like a terrible place to go.
It sounds like everything will be really calm though this season when you have Ime Udoka coaching
and James Harden coming in.
James Harden led team. Like those personalities seem to fit really, really well. So it's great.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna work out. I don't. No. The Rockets.
I'm happy. Hey, at least they'll get the number 1 pick next year in a really shallow draft. So that's great. Good for them. I do like Şengün though.
Yeah. Well, how does Victor fit with Sokan? Why am I saying Sokan? I'm because it's spelled like that. Yeah. But it's pronounced Sohan. Right? Sohan. I just said it. I'm like, I always look at it. I'm like, Sohan. How does he fit? Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. Like, how does Victor fit with this group right away?
So I think coming into the off season, like even before the draft, there's a lot of areas of need. Obviously, the team's terrible, but it feels like the wing situation is waiting for some kind of center of gravity. And so you were thinking like 1 or 2 pick, obviously Wembanyama, amazing. But if we got the number 2 pick, Scoot could be a center of gravity. We just don't have one. We've got good players, good role players, guys who could potentially take the leap. I think Vassell is a guy who could take that leap. He was really had a lot of things to show last season that he didn't the season before. I mean, just I think they were waiting for somebody to kind of make them fit, make the pieces make sense. Like I said, a point guard who can not only run the floor but actually create his own shot and be the point of attack could help all those things fit into place. And I love Jones, excellent backup point guard. I really hope they keep him. I think they will, but I don't think he's the guy to lock all that in. Wembanyama gives them a very clear center of gravity, in the sense of, obviously he's the focal point of what the team's going to build on from here on out. But from an offense and from a defensive perspective, I think he's really that piece that makes everything else make sense. Now that said, I don't know if they. I mean, 7'5", so I mean, functionally, he'll be the center. But I Sohan, another year older, can play kind of an enforcer role. I still don't know that he's big enough to bang around defensively with some of the big centers. Obviously, Wembanyama is rail thin. He's also 19. I saw this tweet that was going around. I just feel old saying that. I saw this tweet that was going around, but somebody had it was probably a Rockets fan, disgruntled, had some clips of Wembanyama, and they were like, "Oh, I can't wait to see Giannis and Embiid just brutalize this guy in the paint." And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait for these 30-year-old dudes to just dominate this teenager. Like, when you say it that way, like, well, yeah, of course. So I think
he's not really going to be in the paint like that. That man's going to be shooting threes. He's going to be way out there.
And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
He's going to make those dudes gassed. So more than likely, it works both ways, right? Like, I don't know that Embiid's going to be guarding him on the wings or trying to keep up with him on the bounce. Like, that's what makes him special, So I think they should prioritize pairing him with somebody who's going to play that more enforcer role and kind of save his body a little bit over the course of the season and free him up to roam a little more. I do think he's going to get a lot of minutes as maybe the lone big man with Sohan at the 4, but the guy I'd love to see them sign in the off season is like Naz Reid. I think would be fun next to him. Zach Collins was actually really good at the end of last season, like shockingly good, but it's hard to tell how much of an aberration that was towards the end of the season because somebody had to play. But he really was good the whole season, especially the last few months. But I think you have your pieces, right? Like, if you have, you can see it in a couple of years. Wembanyama, Sohan, Vassell, possibly Keldon, but then you're playing him at like, him and Vassell interchangeably at the wings. But then you need a point guard.
Yeah.
I think it's okay too. Although this is heresy among Spurs fans, but I'm fine with trading Keldon.
Yeah.
I like Keldon. He makes sense with this roster, but he makes sense with a lot of rosters. And this is the year to, a team that doesn't want a top 10 pick. This would be a great year to kind of let Keldon roam and see what a guy like Malachi Branham might have at the 2. And then you save some money, and you could also sign somebody like Van Vliet. Because I think you need. I
like Van Vliet there. Like, he would be fun, and like, obviously you have the money, and like, I think he would have an opportunity to really shine with this group, and I think that would be good. Like, you want a good ball handler, and I think you want a veteron for Victor to make it easier in the pick and pop, and you don't want to just be Trey Jones and just a collection and just put it like it. You don't want to be in that spot. I also wonder though, like, I think it's Orlando ultimately what happens. I think Orlando and San Antonio do something because you got Markelle, you got Jalen Suggs, you got Cole Anthony, you've got dude after dude after dude. It's just a really crowded backcourt, and they're gonna have another lottery pick. Like, you could just see a scenario where it's just too many young mouths to feed, and like, maybe it's Keldon, maybe it's somebody else, but I would not be surprised if one of the backcourt figureheads in Orlando ultimately finds their way. Like, I think Markelle would be a fine stopgap too. Like, if you trade, I don't think it would cost Keldon, but like, I think there are options. If they need more shooting, maybe it's Doug McDermott. Like, you do something like that to just fill a need. So
I think he's expiring too, I think, right? Or does he have two?
It's a good question. I thought he had one more, but I could be wrong. Maybe a player option or something. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Expiring next summer. I know he's got at least one more in his deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have other pieces, right? I mean, Devontae Graham had a decent season last year. I know he's still in the books. That's the maybe the second best part about drafting Wembanyama, other than drafting Wembanyama, it's like now all of a sudden we have a ton of flexibility. We can try and be good right away. That's the hard part, right? It's like predicting. Somebody's like, "Oh, it's the Spurs. They're going to rest him a ton, and he probably won't play a bunch." And I don't think that's true. That's one of the worst things you could do with the number one pick. Is like, "Hey, we're going to rest you a ton, and put your chances at winning the most important award for a first year player in jeopardy." Like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
They're going to do their best to feature him and figure out where he is on the stage of development as a player, but also where they're at developmentally as a team. And so I think play-in is a realistic possibility. I mean, that feels like a stretch, but some of the teams that were in the mix were just bad. And some of the teams that made the playoffs, I mean, who knows how many games Morant gets suspended, not that they drop out, but windows like that can kind of level out, numbers, whatever, 4 through 10. It's possible.
Yeah.
I heard them on No Dunks. They were saying, why not just suspend him at least the amount of time to disqualify for all NBA teams in award consideration?
Oh,
because then it costs them money a great deal, which might be the case. But anyway,
and then you have Jaren Jackson, who's been injury prone. Like, you can easily see a scenario where the Memphis situation spirals out of control. Like, people forget, like, it just like a healthy Zion. The Pelicans were number one in the West at the time. Like, if he's healthy, are they the best team in the West going into next year? Like, I think it's so easy to overlook just health and what some of these teams look like when they're at full strength, because it's just things can change on a dime in the West. It's so topsy-turvy all across the board.
And you're watching it right now. I mean, nobody would have guessed the Lakers, but great picks. I think you bring up something really interesting, though. This is not just true of sports teams. I think it's true of many kinds of endeavors. It's true of businesses. I'm trying to plant a church. I'm realizing, talking to friends, it's the same thing. One of the worst things potentially to happen to you is to have a monumental amount of success very early on, because you can very quickly overreact to it. And you see that in sports all the time. Like, oh, we have something here. Let's go for it. Forget developmental stuff. Like, let's just see what we can stack here. And the problem with that is it's a obviously high reward, but it's also a high risk scenario. And so the worst case, I think, would be for the Spurs to be really good right away. Not because we all don't want that, but because if that's because of injuries or suspensions or this weird window where suddenly they get to go for surprise everybody in the playoffs, maybe even win a series, it's very easy to overreact to that. Now, that said, the guys they have on the team now the contracts are fantastic. And so they can still maintain a ton of cap flexibility, even throwing a bag at Van Vliet, or I heard some people mention Brook Lopez. Like, why don't you go after a vet that can help you now, can play in a similar style to Wembanyama? But everybody I've heard mention Brook has mentioned it from like a coaching perspective, show them the ropes. And I'm like, hey, all three of the big three are going to be in the gym all the time in San Antonio coaching this guy. So I don't know that coaching is going to be such a key component of finding a vet, at least as far as another big to roam next to him. I think you really just find somebody who can spot up and bully down there. So
I am curious, because like, I wonder what this does for Pop's timeline. Where does he just? I think it's funny when people like look at Pop. I'm like, you just look at Saban, you look at what happened with Bear Bryant after he retired, you look at Joe Paterno, you look at different dudes all across the board. Retirement is just, it's, I think, scary for a lot of these guys, because it's so all consuming and so much wrapped up in their identity and what they do day in, day out, that like taking that away, I think it's scary. Like, I've talked to my dad about it, and it's one of those things where if you don't do it right, retirement can get very unhealthy very quickly, and it can be really, really tough. And it's like, Popovich is like, I love coaching, and if y'all will have me, I'm just gonna keep coaching. Like, it's my passion, and why not? So I wonder if this extends his his time a little bit longer than he would have had they not landed the number 1 overall pick. I'm very curious to see what his timeline is now.
Yeah, I on the one hand, it's hard because can you think of an NBA example of, Sloan maybe retiring? Even that felt a little late, right?
Yeah.
Like, who else in the modern era can you think about?
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson.
Phil, yeah.
That didn't end in
No.
a way that was like, and it was a different team than any of the ones that he was, had championship success with. So there is that fear of like, nobody's going to tell Pop to leave. He's earned that right. But I will say on the
can we do a fun
side,
trivia fact on this, by the way?
Yeah,
I think this is
going
to blow your mind. How many years apart would you guess Pete Carroll, who is the oldest head coach in the NFL, is from the oldest head coach in the NBA, and Gregg Popovich?
Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll, I know, isn't he a 9/11 truther? I feel like that's a very generational conspiracy theory. So I want to say there's at least 15 years between them.
3. He's 71.
No way. Okay, that blew my mind.
Is that not wild to see the two of them? Like, Pete Carroll's out here smacking gum, chewing up. Like, you would guess he's been 57 for like 30 years, but 71.
Yeah, he's only coaching 16 games.
Pop is out here looking like we're a year away from Pop, like doing like with a bathrobe, like really getting cozy, like doing a weighted blanket on the bench. Like, this man is getting cozier and cozier and just like enjoying his wine, he's having a good time.
We have 2 dogs now.
I didn't know you had 2.
One of them was just trying to hop on me. We fostered this dog, and we ended up adopting it for my daughter's birthday. Now, our old dog that we've had, it's been on the podcast, the Chase Thomas podcast with me on occasion.
What was his name?
Still kicking. Selleck.
Selleck, that's right, because he had the mustache.
Schnauzer.
Yes.
Yeah.
How old is he now?
So he turned 13 this year.
Oh, good for him.
This new dog we have is like 2 years old.
Okay.
And so Selleck, probably maybe 6 months ago, we thought, man, we might not get another Christmas with this dude. He's just old, And so we were like, man, I don't know about bringing a second dog into the house. Like he's pretty cantankerous for an old dog. Is he going to like it? And the opposite has happened, like completely. It's like he's still old, but we feel like it's knocked a year or 2 off of his age. And part of it is this is where the analogy that you can tell I'm going with kind of breaks down a little bit, but he's got more people paying attention to him now. In a weird way, there was one dog for 4 people, but now because there's like sibling rivalry with my kids, like both dogs are getting a lot of attention.
Interesting.
And yeah, so it's just that injection of youth has also made him, he's running around the house more, he's eating a lot more. I wonder if for all the questionable coaching decisions maybe in the last few years, as the organization is trying to figure out what to do, or even the organizational personnel decisions, I wonder if this like is the perfect thing to give him just a couple more years of like excitement and energy. And the other thing is, like, if he's as good as he appears to be, and there are that many people around him organizationally to coach, like Pop might have in some ways less to do than he's had to do in a long time. If you got Tim Duncan running sets in practice with Wembanyama, and Parker and Ginobili helping too, he might have a lighter year than he has, just kind of managing things a little bit differently. And also winning is its own injection of energy too. So, I
mean, can you imagine if like Budenholzer goes back to San Antonio as like just in a role where he's like, I'm just going to take the head coach in waiting, where it's like, that's part of the deal if I do come back, like, because he was the longest assistant, 20 years. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool story.
He might come back even without that expectation. I mean, Pop loves doing that. Guys,
because Brett Brown's back, right? Isn't he lead assistant? I think. Yeah.
And Monty came back for a little bit too. I don't know that he was on the bench, but he had a role organizationally. So that wouldn't surprise me at all if Bud found his way back. So
there you go.
Which honestly, there's a lot of fair criticisms of Bud, but I'm really surprised that Doc is about to get another job before Bud does. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. I want to do this and we should do this for all the pods.
Let's do it.
This is how I want you to end it. I wish I could turn on the music, but you know what I'm talking about. At 11:56 at a church service. And the music's coming on, and you haven't looked at your watch, and you're like, oh, the sermon's wrapping up. Caleb, I want to see if you can take us away as a pastor from this very program. How would you, just pretend, you can even do the music too if you want to do it as we're wrapping up here. Because I think this could be a really fun way of closing out a podcast. Yeah. I've never done this. I think this could be fun.
How much time do I have?
What do you think you can do? How long do you need?
Well, every pastor goes twice as long as they say. So give me 60 seconds, and I'll take a couple. Yeah. I might take a couple minutes. Okay. So in Acts chapter 1, Jesus tells the disciples, "You will be my witnesses in the world." And I was thinking of it this year. San Antonio was talking about the Wembanyama news, and I was telling somebody, "We did it. We did it." And they said, "We did it." The truth is, we didn't do anything. We were observers. But you see, when Jesus says, "You'll be my witnesses," he's not talking about observing from the sidelines. He's talking about participation. He's talking about a catalytic demonstration of the Spirit-filled life. He's talking about putting a jersey on and getting out there. So will you be witnesses to what he's done for you? Or will you be content with recaps and observation? Go in peace. Boom. That was like a minute, maybe a minute and a half.
That was good. It's a gift.
That's it. It's a problem, but
it's a gift. I love that. That's great. Because I wonder how many, here in the Southeast, you see it and growing up, I would hear it where it's just it's just funny because so many Spurs things are gonna just come up now. How many churches put on their sign outside? How many puns could they? All the marketers at every church in San Antonio was how do we play off Victor Wembanyama to close our message? How do we do this?
Every youth group, if they didn't end with it, they started with it.
Yeah.
Which I can confess I might have used a similar analogy in a talk last week. So
I love that. Look at Caleb over here. Just
embrace
good at
this too. As Jason Gallagher is really good at this stuff.
Yeah,
too. He grew up in a similar environment. So
yeah, you have to have grown up in it to know. I know. You grew up in it, and the music comes down, and it gets very serious after that. It's just there's a weird
You just know it's that one note, that one chord. Feels like you're floating in space. Yeah. If you really want a great laugh, look up altar call failures on YouTube.
Okay.
Some of the funniest clips you will ever see in your entire life. It's my nightmare. That. So yeah.
There you go. Caleb, I don't know how to plug. Everyone in San Antonio, where can they go to find you right now? Outside of just janitor's closets at this point.
I'm still around on Instagram, Twitter, Caleb J. Saenz. I don't know. This might be the year I try and write something again. I know Tynan's got a great Substack, the 48 Minutes of Hell Crew. We still keep up. Actually, we still message a lot.
Awesome. I love that. Blogs are gone, and the young kids don't understand that we grew up on the True Hoop Network and all of those things. It was just so good. There's no Zach Lowe, by the way, folks, without Celtics Up. There's no...
That's true.
There's so many important
Mahoney
figures.
Was he Mavs Moneyball?
Who?
Rob Mahoney?
Yes, Rob Mahoney was definitely. And then, Jonathan Sharks, our old friend.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I miss our text because he would just hit me up and he would... I love Sharks, and he's
amazing, man.
He just his strength and I don't know. It gets me emotional just thinking about it because it just sucks, all of it. But he and I would text, and he was just so low key. He was the most anti-clout person who was so good at his job that you would find he just wanted to write and talk about basketball and sports and life. And he would just message me. He'd be like, they gonna trade John Collins? It'd be like 7:30 in the morning. I just have those texts. I'd be like, Sharks just popped out of nowhere. He just text. He just wanted to know. He's just curious.
Hey, those are dad hours right there.
Yeah,
bro. Those are you'll get there, man. You'll know.
Yeah, but I've shout out to Sharks and his family and all the good stuff. And the True Hoop Network as a whole, like it was a good time. Like you and I, we're not doing this podcast. It brought so many people all across the country together, and I wish more and more blogs were popping back up now so that folks could build the next wave because it was fun.
You're keeping the fire alive, Chase.
I am keeping the fire alive.
You're keeping the fire alive. Dude.
But we're all getting older. Yeah. Like we're all
That's true.
like we're all in our 30s now. It's just so weird to think about. Yeah.
Hey, 30s are the new 30s are like the prime. Okay, we had more time. We used more words in our 20s, but in our 30s, we're picking our spots. Like we know what we're doing now. So yeah, absolutely, you're crushing it, man. Keep crushing it.
Thank you, and you as well. Do you want to say where the new church? So for the local San Antonians, where can they go find you?
It's called The Garden. I swear I didn't intend to
Oh
wear
my
this
goodness,
shirt.
no.
I also designed it. Anyway, it's called The Garden. You can find us at thegardensa.org, and that's the Garden SA for San Antonio, not like the Garden SA. And
I knew what you were talking about. Do people think that? Oh my god.
No, but it's fun to say it that way for the most part. Our public launch date is tentatively, but did I lose
there
you,
he
bro?
is.
I'm here. Of course, that's what I get for trying to plug.
No, you're okay.
September 17th. That's when we think we're launching. But if you want to find out more about us, thegardensa.org.
Is it really September 17th?
Yeah.
So my anniversary. It's when I got married last year.
Really?
Yeah, September 17th.
I guess I'll fly y'all down. How is that, by the way? Like, you're married, man. That's amazing.
I love being married. But I would tell people, like, look, don't rush it. Like, I waited till I was 31. But it's just when you find the right person, you find the right person. If that person's 22, 27, 42, it's just I don't encourage it if if it's not the right person. So like I never had a doubt. Like it's been great, but like it had to be the right person. So I love being married to my wife, but there's a lot of people who are like I want to get married, and it's like that's not a good reason. That's not what you want to do. It shouldn't feel like type of, it just should feel natural, organic, and you're like, this is exciting, this is fun. Yeah. Like, do you enjoy spending time with this person each and every day? Does she make you better? Do you make her better? Do you enjoy just hanging out on the couch? Like, do you enjoy spending time with this person? Because at the very end of the day, even with kids and everything else, it will eventually come down just to the two of you. And that's a big deal.
Can you be silent next to that person? That's like a huge test. But it's real. I'd say kids are the same way, man. Like we waited, we were married for 5 years before we had kids, and then we waited another 5 years between kids. So it's like time's all relative, man. But there's
no right answer. Just do what you're comfortable with. And but when you marry the right person, it's pretty great.
Man, that's awesome. I'm happy to see you happy, Chase. That is very, very cool. So.
Yeah, happy things for happy is good.
Yes.
Find the happy, find the joy, and embrace it. And when you find the right person, just love's a special thing. And when you find it, hold on to it, do what you can, and then you get to be really cool and wear a cool wedding ring. It's awesome. It's great. I feel old every time I look down. I'm like, I always would look at my dad's growing up and be like, man, this ring, and I'm like, I just never saw myself. I'm like, that was like a symbol of I'm definitely old enough to have a ring. Like it's just I'm old enough to be a married man.
I'm a ring guy.
I'm a ring guy now. I have a wife. And you just say it out loud. Like I'm a husband. That's just it's older, but
it's wild.
It's age appropriate, and you don't feel like it should be age appropriate at this point. Where you're like, ew, what? I'm not there
dude,
yet. I am.
You're talking to a guy who's becoming his dad more and more.
Every day.
I'm obsessed with Bosch right now.
I love Bosch. Bosch Legacy is so great. Have you?
I'm only 3 seasons into Bosch right now.
So much fun. Bosch is fantastic.
I've been Bosch pilled. My dad recommended it enough times.
Yeah, and now Bosch is great. It's a great time. It's a fun way to spend an hour. Like
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's good. Caleb Saenz, always a pleasure. Let's not make it like 6 years before we reconnect.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again very soon.
Let's do it.
When we, it'll be a great off season. We'll do it again.
All right, we'll do it. Caleb, thank you, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.